On today's show, we have two very special guests, Jake Mintz and Jordan Schusterman of Cespedes Family Barbecue, to talk about where the Rangers are, where they're going, and what has gone right and wrong for this team this season. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, the founder and host for all 5 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Today is Friday, September 22nd. Your Rangers are 84-68, holding that third wildcard spot, half a game behind those stinking Houston Astros in the AL West. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into today's show, we've got a special sponsor. Today's show is brought to you by BirdDogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB or enter promo code LockedOnMLB for a free water bottle with any order. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you. Now, today's show is a special one. We've got Jake Mintz and Jordan Schusterman of the Cespedes Family Barbecue and Fox Sports joining us. If you do not know Jake and Jordan, they are an absolute delight. National writers who've been podcasting about baseball for 10 seasons, and their show, The Family Barbecast, was a play off of their original podcast name, the Cespedes Family Barbecue, for their favorite player, Yoenis Cespedes, who had a famous picture of him and his family at a barbecue with the biggest pig I have ever seen on a spit roast. Just a couple of fun guys who know a whole lot about baseball, wanted to talk about the Texas Rangers, and it was an absolute joy to have them on to talk ball. So, without any further ado, here is my interview with Jake Mintz and Jordan Schusterman. Here we are with Jake Mintz and Jordan Schusterman of the Cespedes Family Barbecue. What is the actual name of this podcast? The Baseball Barbecast podcast.
Baseball Barbecast. You nailed it. It is us. I am Jordan. The other voice is Jake and Bryce. It is a pleasure to be here on Locked On Rangers. Very excited to talk about this ridiculous team.
This is definitely a ridiculous team. Y'all are also writers at foxsports.com. And shout out to an old friend of mine, Or Moyal, who I think y'all know. Great guy. Actually, the first guy to ever pay me to write words about baseball. So very, very old friend. Great dude. But let's start with surprises. This team has been a surprise all year, and their downfall has also been kind of surprising, uprising, just very up and down team. I'm going to start with what surprised y'all the most about the Texas Rangers this season?
I like the idea of the surprise. Like, this surprise is the bullpen. Like, surprise, we lost it again. Surprise, we blew it. That's not a fair way to think about it. So first of all, just like the Ranger season as a whole, right? I'm sure you've talked about it. It's the chronology of how this has gone down. Where if they had been a total disaster, bullpen-wise, in April and May, and then just turned it on the rest of the season, and they were like chasing down the Astros, the vibes would be very high in Arlington. But instead, they scored too early, as the men in Blazers might say. And here they are in September, holding on for dear life. The biggest surprise has to be Mitch Garver's 138 OPS plus. I know you are a Mitch Garver guy, but you did not think he was going to have the second highest OPS plus on the team, behind only Corey Seager, who is maybe another surprise that he has been this good. He has been spectacular the last half decade, but this is just a whole other level of offensive production from him. And then just the way that Josh Jung has integrated really seamlessly into this offense, and how crucial he's been to giving the lineup depth. Those are the three things that have really surprised me, because the reason this team is good is not Seager. Like, he's a reason he's helpful, duh. Like, I'm not trying to downplay that. It's Jonah Heim being pretty good, and Nathaniel Lowe being pretty good, and Leody Taveras being fine, and Elise Garcia being, like, it's the bottom of that lineup being better than we thought, more than the top of the lineup being better than we thought.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say you're still underselling Seager, but I understand what you're saying. And
like, I'm not sitting here on September 21st being like, whoa, Corey Seager's been great.
yeah, but I will say that, and I have to imagine for Rangers fans, the version that you got last year, which was pretty good, was worse, definitely, than people expected. I would have to assume.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not that people said he was a disaster, but I think
there are a lot of other disasters on that team.
And especially because last year they were healthy. He was healthy, right? And so in that sense, it was hard to complain. This year, he's had some more injury issues, but when he's been playing, I mean, I think there's a good chance he finishes second in MVP. Like, I think is even with 120 games. But I think he's going to have a real case for that because he has been, one of the best hitters in the league, semi and playing every single game. He's one of only 2 players to start every single game this season alongside Matt Olson. But I agree with Jake. It is the depth of the lineup. And it's the guys that have taken steps forward, like Jonah Heim, like Leody Taveras, like Ezekiel Duran, a personal favorite. I know he's kind of tailed off a little bit in the second half. And then you're getting performances from veterans. I mean, oh my God, Robbie Grossman has been amazing now for 6 weeks. And Garver's been good all season. So this lineup, I think we knew it could be very special, but it has lived up to it. And getting Jung and Garcia back these past couple of days, I think is going to go a long way towards making them having a case for being the best lineup in the American League. And that still might not be enough to get them knocked over, which is ridiculous. But I think that is still a strength that they can lean on in a big way.
Yeah, and this lineup has been really good. There's also been a lot of injuries. I just looked this up, and the last time the Rangers had 5 all-star hitters, but the last time all 5 of them were in a lineup before Monday when they activated Adolis and Josh off the IL was July 22nd against the Dodgers in that game where Corey Seager slid into second base and injured his thumb. I mean, it's kind of insane. But in terms of this lineup being great, how much of this do you think is sustainable? Because the Rangers have almost all of these guys outside of Garver under contract for like 3, 4, 5, 8 seasons. How much of this is sustainable and how much of this is kind of like a flash in the pan?
Well, I mean, I'm looking at like, okay, so who can I imagine trending upward, continuing to trend upward, right? And the obvious one is Josh Jung, right? I mean, this rookie season has been so impressive. And I've been a fan of him for a while, but I mean, I think he's even kind of outpaced my expectations for him this year. And you look at other guys who are, I mean, Ezekiel Duran's, a year younger than Josh Jung. And we saw versions of him earlier this season that could be an everyday hitter, position TBD. But are you getting a version of Garcia that's much better than this? Probably not. Are you getting a version of Seager that's better than this? I doubt.
I kind of hope not.
Maybe. I don't know what that means, Jake. That makes no sense.
I just don't want baseball to get any easier for him.
Oh, right. Then we start getting worried for the rest of the
Well, I mean, Seager is in like a 1 for 15 slump, so I mean, maybe he's washed.
Jordan makes a really good point. It's like this is probably the best Jonah Heim will get.
Heim's weird catching. Listen, I'm not going to. And by the way, he's also kind of sucked on offense since he got injured.
Not the last, yes, but not for the last like week and a half. Basically, since Toronto is where he figured it out.
He started figuring it out, but that's a huge development. But again, catching offense, I just have no idea how to expect year to year. Nathaniel Lowe has certainly been a little bit disappointed, but man, and Semien, it's hard to complain when he plays every single day. Like, were you expecting an OPS plus more than 122? Probably not. I know we've seen it from him in the past. So I think that the pieces are in place for this to still be one of the best lineups in baseball. But you could see some parts where it could maybe fall over.
But I think it'll still be good. It'll just look a little different. I think it's like, okay, well, Evan Carter is probably a better than Travis Jankowski, right? And
let's hope so.
Oh, let's hope so.
Yeah.
And Wyatt Langford. And there are other and I think Duran will get better. And so I think that there are pieces of the team that will kind of come up and replace the guys that maybe tail off a bit, because I have more faith now that the Rangers more or less know what they're doing at the big league level to get the most out of their non-stars, which I'm sure is something that was not the case for the last, half decade of Rangers fandom.
Yeah, there was a lot of not getting the most out of guys outside of my large adult son, Joey Gallo. I was banging the Joey Gallo drum. I still am. I will always bang the Joey Gallo drum of like all the first round picks and all the different guys who they just like did not get the most out of, like Nomar Mazara and Rudy Odor tailing off and all kinds of other things. I was like,
Iro Barris is going to figure it out. All right. Don't you maybe talk about need him in the bullpen. Let's get Jairo
Yeah.
Barris out there in the pen, and maybe we can make it happen.
Neftali Feliz still pitching.
We'll get back to my interview with Jake Mintz and Jordan Schusterman, but first, this episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs are the most comfortable shorts or pants you will ever wear. Bird Dogs are so incredibly comfortable, and they look good, and they are good for literally any situation. Bird Dogs have stretched khaki shorts. They're designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. These Bird Dog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they fit so much better. They fit better than regular shorts that are made of that stiff, restricting cotton. Bird Dogs fixed this issue by inventing the cloud knit fabric that looks so good, stretches like khaki, and you can go with a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice your movement. They use anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long with those Bird Dogs. They're functional for any occasion. If you're going on the golf course, if you're going on a date, if you're just hanging out with friends, going to the gym, whatever it is, Bird Dogs are the perfect pair of pants and shorts to wear. So go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB or enter promo code LockedOnMLB at checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. This episode is also brought to you by DoorDash. If you're missing syrup for your pancakes, or if you just ran out of your favorite coffee creamer, with DoorDash grocery delivery, you can get exactly what you want right when you need it. You've trusted DoorDash to deliver your restaurant favorites, and now you can get your groceries delivered that actually delivers too. With thousands of grocery stores to choose from, you'll find the best in your neighborhood to boost your local economy with each and every order. You'll get exactly what you ordered, or we'll make it right. So sit back and enjoy the quality groceries just like you picked them out yourself. You want even more value? You can save on all your grocery and restaurant deliveries with a $0 delivery fee on all eligible orders with Dash Pass membership. With easy substitutions in the right app, in-app, and best-in-class customer support, DoorDash delivers groceries exactly how you want it. Get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to a $20 value when you use code LockedOnMLB at checkout. Limited time offer, terms apply. That's 50% off up to $20, no minimum subtotal, and 0 delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter code LockedOnMLB. Don't forget, that's code LockedOnMLB for 50% off your first order with DoorDash.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Why are we bringing Neftali back? I'm sure he'll be in the DR this winter. Like, we need a guy that has saves, right? Isn't that what this bullpen needs?
They definitely need a guy who's got saved. I mean, Will Smith has had a few saves, but you brought up Wyatt Langford, and I want to talk about Wyatt Langford and his just incredible start to pro ball. I know, Jordan, you're a big draft guy. Did you see anything like this coming for Wyatt Langford, or is this even surpassing your wildest expectations for him?
I'd say it's a little bit surprising considering part of the appeal of Langford, not that he hadn't performed in the SEC for the last 2 years, but it's oh man, give him some time, give him a couple of years in pro ball and watch out, right? Not that it was going to take a long time. He's obviously a college SEC performer, but the appeal of him is really the dream of the physical ability more than the now skills. But that also may have been underselling kind of what was already a really impressive offensive profile from an underlying standpoint, from a contact standpoint. Obviously, quality of contact has been a strength of his for a long time. But I'll just say, the stats speak for themselves. We saw Wyatt Langford in Omaha, and I mean, we saw him hit multiple home runs. Certainly the one that stands out.
Oh my God!
Forever against UVA, but not just the performance. I mean, just look at the that is not the body of a college baseball player.
No.
That's the body of a college football player, very simply. And so the fact that he plays baseball is really special and really cool. And he used to play football. And I'm glad that, first of all, imagine what the hell he would have done if he had actually played all 3 years at Florida. I mean, maybe he wouldn't have, been quite the same as dominant if he did play at the start of his freshman year. But man, I mean, he's just figuring it all out so fast. Whether we see him at the end of this year or not, that is a hell of a player to get at 4th overall. I know this was a historically good top of the draft, but man, oh man, you got to be really excited about him. That is a hell of a player right there.
Yeah, I am over the moon about him and the Rangers' 2019 first-round pick, Josh Jung. The Rangers had not done a great job of first-round picks. If you want to look at some depressing draft picks, go look at the Rangers' first-round picks from I think it was about 2003. I think was Mark Teixeira. Maybe it was 2000 or 2001. But from there to Joey Gallo in 2012, there was just a whole big bag of nothing. It was so bad.
Here's the thing, man. You go back. I don't need to go back that far. I've had questions about their drafts 2 years ago. Okay, and the Langford pick, credit to them for doing it. And they were in. It's one of the luckiest sequences of lottery luck, bad season, historic top of the draft. I don't know how much credit you give them for taking Wyatt Langford at number 4 because look at him. Of course.
What a pick! Wow.
I still have questions about the Rangers drafting recently. My goodness. And Evan Carter represents a massive win. That is what a pick, right? For sure. Right. Mm-hmm. But still massive questions about the strategy in 2021, massive questions in 2022, massive questions about the Jack Leiter situation. And so sorry to rain on but it's really an issue. But hey, guess what? This is the beauty of the draft. If you hit to this degree on a couple,
doesn't matter.
You're going to get to keep keeping your jobs and keep drafting bad players and executing bad strategies. It's very funny. And so, listen, player development is still a big part of this. And you can say, hey, well, they drafted, TK Roby and they got Jordan Montgomery and Jase, right? They got Jordan Montgomery. Maybe that'll help them win a playoff game this year, and that'd be great. But definitely some uneven. I think that the way that their farm system has been built has been super bizarre, and the success stories versus the failures have made it very difficult to assess where they actually are in terms of really organizational strength. But hey, when you're willing to suddenly spend $1 billion over the course of 2 years, it doesn't matter that much, but it also kind of leaves them with some interesting holes.
Correct.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I was questioning the draft strategy last year. I was so completely thrown off, but it seems like Brock Porter is having a fantastic season. Rocker was really exciting before he had Tommy John surgery, and Leiter, the last month and a half that he came back up, everything looks like it was much better. The stuff is still there, as opposed to Owen White, whose stuff is just backed up out of nowhere all season because the Rangers have just cannot develop a single starting pitcher, not a single okay one, to the point where I was over the moon at the first 3 innings of Cody Bradford on Sunday before he got just rocked by Cleveland. I was I tweeted out after 3 innings, you know what, give Cody Bradford a spot in the rotation next year, and then got rung up for six runs without getting it out in the next inning. But I'm curious because Rangers fans are definitely have a perspective on our team being unable to develop any starting pitchers. Can you just give people kind of a rundown of how few teams are actually good at developing homegrown starting pitching? Because it's really hard.
It's so hard to do. Pitching is very volatile. And the teams that have the sauce figured out have a huge advantage. You know it. The Rangers play the Mariners 13 times a season. And I'm sure it feels like every week the Mariners have a new guy that you've never heard of. You're what's a Bryce Miller?
Oh, I know Bryce Miller. Bryce Miller is my
A&M guy right there.
Well, not only that, but he is also my arch nemesis because he in my holy war for the correct spelling of Bryce, which I'm losing very badly. I'm losing. Bryce Harper was the first nail in the coffin, but then there's just more Bryces, and then there was a BRYSE, and I was
you better hope Bryce Terang starts figuring out the offense, because
I am a huge Bryce Terang fan.
Otherwise, you have no hope in that war.
Yeah, Bryce Miller, who is an Aggie. I am a Texas Tech grad.
Yeah.
And he's also a Mariner, and he also spells his name with a Y. I'm this is my arch nemesis.
Yeah.
I think, dude, I've been very impressed with Dane Dunning's season.
Yeah.
Dane Dunning's sneaky huge for this team.
Oh,
at the beginning of the year, they were sorry, Dane, we bought every pitcher in the world. Go bum it in the bullpen. And then everyone broke. What did you say?
I said, you know who else they said that to? And then I said, sorry, that's mean. As I assume Bryce knows who I'm referring to. But
Cole Reagans. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I know.
But it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
We'll get back to the rest of my interview with Jake Mintz and Jordan Schusterman in a second, but first, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more if you want to bet on Corey Seager having a big weekend against the Seattle Mariners. That is going to be a fun series. If you wanted to bet on the Rangers winning the AL West, I'm sure there's odds on that. Or if you wanted to bet on the NFL season, and if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, you're feeling really good about those Dallas Cowboys. I think they're playing the Cardinals this weekend. We'll see what it is. But if you want to go put your money where your mouth is, visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And now, back to my talk with Jake Mintz and Jordan Schusterman.
I agree. No, Dane Dunning deserves way more love. I mean, he's leading the team in innings. How much could... Again, we don't really bet on baseball, but my God, I don't know what kind of odds you could have gotten on Dane Dunning leading the team in innings.
Well, like, it's not just that they put him in the pet. He was going to be in AAA because he wasn't even the sixth man in this rotation. Jake Odorizzi was like the sixth man. And so, like, it's
Dane
insane.
Dunning leading the team in innings is as much, oh my God, mad respect Dane Dunning to, oh my God, this is the whole problem, right? And so that leaves them in a very interesting spot. Of course, the bullpen's gotten a lot more of the spotlight in a negative way. But here's the other thing. I say, what kind of odds could you have gotten on Dane Dunning? At the same time, with the exception of Jon Gray, I guess, or Martin Perez, you weren't exactly betting on guys with the track record of durability, right? And so that is why you find yourself in the situation that you're in now, where also the only guy you're relying on from a durability standpoint and a performance standpoint is Jordan Montgomery. And he's been great, but I have no idea what I'm getting from anybody else that is running the first pitch of the game for the Texas Rangers.
And that is a rough place to be. But, I mean, Nathan Eovaldi has been just... The stuff is just not there. He's battling, and he might be okay in a couple of games, but like without the velo, it's the exact same thing that happened last year in Boston, where he was great in the first half and then lost the velo and wasn't the same. But I'm curious. I mean, this is obviously the Rangers went about it in a unique way of rebuilding, as in they just didn't rebuild, except for like they're really thankful that the 2020 season went off the rails so quickly because. You know, you start your rebuild in a season with 60 games, it makes it much easier to ease into that rebuild in only 2 years of really being truly terrible. But I'm curious, as to your perspective as an outsider, of like, you know, if you're going to go for it, is like, and you're just going to like, you know, bypass the long rebuild, the multiple 110 loss years like the Cubs and the Astros did. Is this like the best way you can go about it?
I mean, this is what the Phillies did, right?
For a long time.
Yeah, but the players, and so are the Rangers, like the players that the Phillies had acquired through trade and the draft that were supposed to be the face of the rebuild were not good, right? Scott Kingery and Nick Williams and all those, you know, Jorge Alfaro and whatever. Like, those guys were, I know that's sad.
Shout out to my boys.
But the reason the Phillies are good now is because they went out and got Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper and Nick Castellanos and Zach Wheeler. Like, that's why they're good, because they spent the money and they hit on a lot of those guys. I think it is a good strategy. This season has raised a very frustrating question in baseball, which is spending money good? Because the top three teams in payroll are the Mets, Yankees, and Padres. None of them will make the playoffs. The Rangers are fourth. They might not make the playoffs, right? Now, that's an easy headline. Top four teams, payroll, don't make the playoffs. Then it goes Phillies, Dodgers, Astros, Angels, Blue Jays, Braves, right? So spending money is good. It will make you a better team. Let's not overthink this. It is about how you go about spending the money. The Rangers they spent a lot of money on a lot of volatile type players, mostly on the pitching side. You spend the money on pitching. If you spend the money on Jacob deGrom, you knew this was a possibility. Everyone in the world did. Right? And you were gambling that he wouldn't get hurt. And that if he didn't get hurt, he'd be one of the best pitchers on earth. Right? And they lost that bet. That's okay. It was a bet worth making. Right? The Seager money, that looks okay, huh?
Yeah.
The Semien money, that looks pretty good. Yeah. Even the Jon Gray contract looks fine. So I think that looking at payroll, does it equal the win column is a little bit overly simplistic. And if you're a fan base, you want your team to spend. You do. You always want your team to spend money and go get better players. What's been good about the Rangers season and why they're different from the other three teams I mentioned is that those younger players, the backbone of the team, the depth, stepped up and provided security at the bottom of the lineup and provided security when their best players weren't available. And that's why they still have a chance to make the playoffs, whereas Buck Showalter has vacation plans in October.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a big difference. And one part of this team that they didn't spend money on, they didn't really address this season, even though for years, basically since they signed Semien and Seager, they said 2023 is the year we're going to contend. And a lot of us were like, okay, that's a bit much. Y'all chill out. Like,
sick, bro.
Yeah. It's like, I'll believe it when I see it. It was the same thing of like the entire back half of 2021 after they traded Joey Gallo. They're like, oh, wait till this offseason. There's so many like free agent stars that we're going to go sign. I'm like, y'all haven't spent money on anybody since Shin-Soo Choo. I will believe it when I see it. And then boom, here's Marcus Semien. Boom, here's Corey Seager. Boom, here's Jon Gray in like a 48-hour span.
I think the Bochy thing I'm most interested in is like more from the standpoint of you were in first place for 4 months. Now you're not. You might miss the playoffs. Like that is the bigger. You can keep pointing to the bullpen, and yes, of course, that's the primary thing. That would be if I was like a very basic fan. That would be a thing I would be worried about with my manager. I don't necessarily believe that, but I could imagine that being a concern in terms of like we talk about the bullpen and but like functionally what has occurred here is a gigantic blown lead in a division, and you knew that there were good teams like Houston and Seattle coming, but still that is a thing that has occurred and is obviously what Rangers fans are stressed about right now. So
I think Bochy like keeping the vibe of this team like after that series against the Astros, you just got waxed, and like the first game was close and blowing that one was miserable, and then like you just get boat raced in the next two, and then you lose the first game of that series to the A's, and it's like it's so over. Like it's so over. There's no way you come back. Like even with Bruce Bochy, like even if you have like I don't know, like God as your manager, like there's no way you cure those vibes. And then they went on a 6-game winning streak and beat the crap out of the Blue Jays, and then you get swept by like this team is just it's so over. We're so back. Like no team has more encapsulated that than this team.
That is also like that's the roster you've built. Like that is. You have this top end. You have when it's all clicking. We just saw yesterday put up 1 billion runs against Boston. Like, that's the ride you're going to take, and it might last another 9 games. It might last another 19 games. I don't think I'm with Jake. I'm scared. It's to the point where it's hard to imagine them winning multiple playoff series in a row. But like, I don't know, man. Like, I still think the Rangers are pretty good, and the pitching injuries have gotten to a point where it is so. At the very least, when Jordan Montgomery's on the mound, I know that they've blown some of his leads, but at the very least, when he's pitching, like they can absolutely beat anybody, and they can still outscore anybody even when their starter shits the bed. So,
I'm putting Eovaldi in the pen right now.
Wow.
I'm rolling with the rotation. Dunning, listen, shut up, stop laughing at me. Dunning, Montgomery, Gray, Heaney, okay?
Oh boy.
4-man staff. Everyone's on short rest, baby. Now's the time. And then Eovaldi out of the pen, chucking bullets in the ninth. Let's go, Rangers.
I think honestly, the Eovaldi issues are not a matter of ticking up in the bullpen.
Get him in the pen, baby.
That might be it, but I will.
Get injured again if he starts throwing Max Everett. Anyway,
he might be. I have one last question before I let y'all go. How much of a believer are you in the 2024 Rangers? When everything's back, when Max Scherzer will totally be healthy for the full season, you get Jacob deGrom back, and maybe Nathan Eovaldi is healthy in the playoffs.
Oh yeah, for sure. So who is? I mean, you already kind of mentioned it earlier, right? It's basically on offense. You got everybody except for Garver. Mm-hmm. But hey, is there like this happens every year with a trade acquisition? Where the team is just like, oh, like we just obviously have to re-sign this guy. It's like, do you? So I don't know where the fan base is at on Montgomery.
I think right now with the state of the rotation, like bring him back, dear God.
So here's the thing, right? What do we know about the Texas Rangers recently? They spend money on pitching. What does this free agent class have a lot of? Pitching.
Yeah, but who?
Yeah. It doesn't matter. Like they're going to spend too much money on Aaron Nola or Lucas Giolito or something, and they'll get kind of hurt and be fine. It'll just be another one of these guys, and that's okay. 2024 Texas Rangers win the division.
Ooh, I like it. Jordan, you got any spicy predictions for the 2024 Texas Rangers?
Not that. Not that they can't, but I think it's actually that simple. I mean, I agree with Jake's point about like they have been next to the Padres the most aggressive team in baseball in terms of acquiring players over the last 2 years.
That's a good thing.
So there is no reason to expect that to change. Whether they make the playoffs and come up short in whatever round, they're going to be like, oh, we just need this. Whether they blow it and miss the playoffs, and it's like, oh my God, it's not like we can go backwards. Like, we got to keep pushing forward. We do still have a lot of good players on this team. You know, it's not a situation necessarily where you have the hard reset like you're seeing with the Mets. And so they're absolutely going to do something. And by the way, to your point about Ohtani, I absolutely think that that's possible. So I don't think it's likely. I don't think any of us know anything about what Ohtani wants at all whatsoever. But if I am picking a team that's not the Dodgers, I think I am picking them.
They're in tier 2. Rangers are in tier 2. Dodgers are tier 1, tier 2, Giants, Rangers, Cubs,
etc.
Mariners. I hope he doesn't.
Mariners tier 3.
Okay. Makes me feel better because if the Mariners add a bat,
get my hopes up for that again. Are you kidding me?
The Rangers are the only team in the division in tier 2. There you go.
Makes me feel good. Well, Jake, Jordan, where can the fine folks listening to Locked On Rangers find y'all and all of your good work?
Listen, Rangers fans, when your team gets eliminated, which will happen because of your bullpen, and you're like, this baseball sport, I like it. I wish I could keep listening to people talk about it. Well, we have good news for you. Baseball Barbacast, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, in October, going every day, just like Chris Stratton.
Oh, yeah. Just call on down, and we're going to come in and do our best.
You call us, we'll podcast just for you.
Yes. And if my Cole Reagan's jokes did not offend you too much, we really would appreciate if you join us because we have a good time. We are going to talk about the Rangers in the next few weeks, if not beyond. And Bryce, a pleasure and a privilege to join you here. And good luck to your Rangers over these next. I mean, as a Mariners fan, I'm geared up for war here. And so I have some other Rangers fans in my life that we're trying to prepare for these next 10 days. It's going to be terrifying. It's going to be very fun. And the way I take here, I'll leave on a positive note here, since I'm sure there's some Rangers fans that think that we're complete dickheads. I texted my dear friend Casey, and she texted me, big Rangers fan. She said, Jordan, are we still going to be friends after the next 10 days? And I said, not only are we going to be friends, we're going to be closer than ever when the Astros miss the playoffs entirely. So let's keep that energy, and we'll see you in a little while. And yes, listen to Baseball Barbacast.
Thank y'all so much for joining in. Oh, what a way to endear yourself to Rangers fans is saying the Astros missed the playoffs. Literally, not a better way you can do that. Thank y'all so much for joining me. Go listen to Baseball Barbacast. Go read everything they write at Fox Sports. Thank y'all so much for listening. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy Playoff Chase Texas Rangers Baseball.